Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to today's X Talks webinar. Today's talk is entitled, Gain the Benefits of eSource Without the Hassle of a Complex Integration. My name is Sonia Hunt, and it's my pleasure to be your X Talks moderator for today. Today's webinar will run for approximately 60 minutes. This presentation includes a Q&A session with our speakers. This webinar is designed to be interactive, and webinars work best when you're involved. So please feel free to submit questions and comments for our speakers throughout the presentation by using the questions chat box, and we'll try to attend to your questions during the Q&A session. Now, this chat box is located in the control panel, and that's found on the right-hand side of your screen. If you require assistance, please contact me at any time by sending me a message using that chat panel. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. Please note that this event will be recorded and made available to you for future streaming on xtalks.com. At this point, I'd like to thank Bioclinica, who developed the content for this presentation. Bioclinica is a global life science provider that utilizes science and technology to reduce risk in clinical trials, helping companies to develop new, life-improving therapies more efficiently and safely. The company's offerings include medical imaging and cardiac safety services, clinical adjudication, randomization and trial supply management and optimization, electronic and eSource data capture, site and patient payments and budget forecasting, pharmacovigilance, and trial management. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Adaptive Clinical Systems, and they offer an efficient interoperability solution for your most complex clinical data challenges. As you look to decentralize trials, Adaptive Clinical's interoperability platform facilitates data workflows across all study partners and eClinical data sources. Their solution ensures accurate and efficient clinical data interoperability for any study of any complexity while going well beyond simple point-to-point integration. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to your speakers for today's webinar. And first, I'd like to introduce you to Richard Murg. He is the Global Vice President of Business Development for the Software Solutions Division of Bioclinica. He is responsible for sales and marketing and very influential in the operations and development of the products and services. Richard came to Bioclinica in 2006 as a West Coast account executive. And our second speaker is Sina Adibi. He is the CEO and President of Adaptive Clinical Systems. Sina has over 25 years of experience in life sciences informatics. He is the founder of Adaptive Clinical Systems, makers of the Adaptive eClinical Bus, a simple, validated, and cost-effective solution for clinical data integration. Now, before I pass over the controls to our first speaker, who is Richard, I'm going to launch our first poll question, and we have a couple of them for you to engage in. So here's our first one. And you should see it right now appear in front of your screen. And there it is. So please go ahead and cast your vote on any of the below. This is done in real time, so your participation is strongly encouraged and very much appreciated. And I'll give you a few more seconds to do this poll question here. Okay, and the question was, what type of organization are you with? Very simple. So please choose from the below: pharmaceutical, biotechnology sponsor, medical device sponsor, CRO phase 1 to 4, including clinical sites, clinical technology provider, patient recruitment site management. Okay, that looks like it's everyone. Okay, now I'm going to close the polls and share the results. What type of organization are you with? We have 35% with pharmaceutical biotechnology sponsor, 9% with medical device sponsor, 30% with CRO, 26% with clinical technology, and 0% with patient recruitment site management. So thank you everyone for participating in that last poll question. I'm going to pass over the mic to our speaker, Richard. So Richard, when you're ready, you may begin.
Well, good morning, everybody. Greetings from Southern California. And as soon as we present the questions, I'd like to go over those with you. Okay, so let's define eSource before we go any further. Okay, so for the purposes of this presentation, eSource is the collection of clinical data at the site without the use of paper or transcription. Input sources include tablets, diagnostic devices, and electronic health records. Sonia, poll question number 2.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. We're going to launch that second poll question right now, and there it is. I'll give you about 40 seconds to complete this poll question, and the question is, have you utilized any eSource in your clinical trials? So please select one of the below, yes or no. Oh, it looks like everyone has cast their vote, so thank you very much, everyone, for that. Let's close the polls and see the results. Okay, so here are the results of that poll question. Have you utilized any eSource in your clinical trials? And we have here 70% that said yes and 30% that said no. So thank you everyone for participating in that last poll question. Now back to Richard and Sina.
So today's topics are, why do we need to adopt new digital tools like EMR, EHR, eSource, mHealth, and wearables? What are the data and workflow benefits of integrated participant data directly into eClinical systems? Why is interoperability critical for the data management and clinical operations efficiencies? And what are the best practices for sponsors and CROs when it comes to utilizing diverse data e-sources? So the first question here, why do we need to adopt new digital tools like EMR, EHR, eSource, mHealth, and wearables? And I think that that COVID has really caused a rapid uh, rapid growth in this space and rapid adoption. 70% it was surprising to me, but I'll bet you before 2020 we were less than 50%. And so, you know, as we're moving forward, I think that decentralized trials are going to be more commonplace simply because it's easier to recruit subjects and it makes trials much more flexible if we're able to bring in these new digital tools. And that's kind of what we're going to be discussing today. Sina?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me here, Rich, and Bioclinica. Obviously, this is a topic that's very near and dear to our heart. And we've been really fortunate, as you pointed out. 2020 was an amazing year in terms of the transformations that happened. And from what we have seen, we're seeing a number of factors that are pushing, if you will, that 70% that we saw, and hopefully the remaining 30% into seriously looking at adopting these digital tools. For one, we're seeing that design complexity of studies have gone through the roof. We did the eClinical trials. Now everything is so complex and demands on getting the clinical trial done and accelerating the whole process has been greater than ever. The variety and volume of data is also that's being captured is ever increasing. But the good news is that all of this data is available in the EMRs, in eSource, in the mHealth, and so on. The challenge, though, is that the traditional approaches that we've been doing are not scalable. So we really can't use paper. That's definitely out. But then I will even argue that a lot of us do use Excel, and you know who you are. You use Excel and as an attachment to an email, and you send it around. I think that is also a challenge, and it's not scalable anymore. Tufts did a study that was not too long ago, and they estimated that it takes 22 days from visit till the data appears in the CRF. That kind of lag is just not acceptable. I have a couple of references for really neat articles that I would like you to look at. There is one in Health Affairs. It's an academic article. They did an analysis of how did we get this vaccine for COVID out and done so quickly. And I'll let you read it, but a quote that was very descriptive was rapid information sharing, innovations in technology and process were the key contributors to the rapidity with which COVID vaccines were developed. I urge you to go and look at that. Basically, what they're saying is they went after where the data was, they figured out ways of getting the data out, and rather than remanufacture the data, they tapped into what was there. Of course, this was an urgent national emergency, so a lot of the processes were changed as well. The other point is technology has advanced quite a bit since many years ago. Most of the sites that we deal with now have the data in pristine, clean form in their EMRs. Back in 2016, when the FDA set up their task force for eSource, meaningful use as part of the EMR rollout was in its infancy, and it was a very fresh concept. But now that has matured. The EMR packages, the eSource, the mHealth, and wearables are now on their version 3 and 4. The data is being captured consistently, and it's very clean. So there's really no reason why we can't use them that way. The other thing that has emerged that I want to touch on is, this movement towards patient centricity. Patients are really hard to find for these complex studies, and then they're even tougher to maintain or retain, rather. So what we have to do now is we have to go where the patients are, and we have to keep in mind patient convenience. And a lot of patients have mobile devices. They already have a lot of these mHealths and these wearables. Of course, if you're doing a specific study where a unique sensor needs to be used, absolutely you have to go through the logistics of rolling it out and getting the patient to learn how to use the new sensor. But if the case is something where the biomarker is already available through a wearable that the patient has, let's think about that, because that patient convenience is going to definitely help adherence of it. And as Rich pointed out, I just want to echo this. I think something good that came out of an unfortunate pandemic was the fact that it compelled a lot of us, starting February, March of last year, to look to be very, very innovative in how we bring data together in virtual trials and decentralized trials. We woke up one day, we couldn't see the patients, couldn't interact with our own team members. And that really forced it. And that's why I think this adoption is already underway. But I think there are compelling reasons why we have to continue to do this. Richard, do you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I think that covered it very well. The second question, what are the data and workflow benefits of integrating participant data directly into the eClinical systems? Well, to me, the greatest benefit is savings in your trial, right? The most expensive part of the clinical trial is source data verification, right? And if we can eliminate SDV, right, because source is coming directly from a tablet or the device or the health record, you really speed up the trial and you eliminate a lot of expense. That will be one of the biggest drivers in this technology. Sina?
Yeah, well put. I would say just a couple of other things would be, by integrating all of the participant data directly, we will have more prompt and better visibility into the data. A lot of us are accustomed to getting the data periodically, once a week or so on. But now with all of the analytics and the AI that we have, the faster we get the data fed into these machines, the quicker we can come up with the insights.
Yeah, that's real time. You're not talking about a 3-week lag and looking at data, right? And waiting to receive a report. You're looking at going straight into analytics tools and seeing this information real time.
Yeah, exactly right. Let's move on to the next question. Go ahead, Rick.
Why is interoperability critical for data management and clinical operation efficiencies? Well, You know, as you're going to see, the way that the software works is the ability to plug and play with these various systems. You know, you don't know what kind of instruments the site has. You don't know what kind of wearables your subject has, and we need to move forward to where we're embracing standards and interoperability. So we're reaching out and we're getting data, right? And we need to be flexible, and this flexibility needs to be efficient, right? And so I think that's been the hardest part, is that you know, for 20 years we were saying, hey, can we get health record data into this trial? And you go, sure we can. We'll just integrate into the system, and that came with a pretty big price tag. And then, you know, 99% of the time it was, well, you know, it doesn't justify the transcription, saving the transcription of a couple of forms, so we're not going to do it. And we got to get beyond that, right? We've got to make this less expensive, so that we're not just getting a couple of forms, but we're getting all of the information. And that just starts feeding this ecosystem. Sina?
Yeah, wow, that was really good. You know, you're right. It reminded me of a, pardon me, a situation where, as we were going through the protocol design, some data was, this is going back a million years, of course, some data collection was just really difficult. And we were laboring over how do we do this without jeopardizing the overall study. And to your point, a lot of that stuff is now available at our fingertips. And moreover, we have a lot of options. We can get the biomarkers from a variety of different sources. So we just need to kind of open up the way that we're looking at it. And I think interoperability is definitely going to be key.
Yeah, when you go through the demo, keep the word interoperability in mind, because adaptive has really crushed this. Next slide. All right, so what are the best practices for sponsors and CROs when it comes to utilizing diverse data e-sources? So, you know, of all of the Bioclinica customers, we have one. That is one that has embraced eSource, and it's pretty much been an iterative process to where we started presenting forms on tablets. We started making those forms more efficient, and to start and designing them around their process and their workflows. And now it is a very effective solution there, and you know, I think that the technology is getting better and better, so that customization is just becoming a lot easier. And I do think we are to the point, though, where we can start taking lessons learned and applying that to many more of our sponsors. Sina?
Yeah, I like that. I would just add a couple of points here. You know, traditionally, the protocol was king, and then we would derive from that the data management plan and the subsequent study visits and so on and so on. What I'd like to add here is that we now need to think about the data architecture and the data flow architecture. We kind of internally refer to it as make sure you have a frictionless data flow. In other words, as you're devising your data management plan, take into account things like where is the data going to come from, how am I going to get it, and try not to do these things as an afterthought. It helps you in many, many ways, and you'll skip out on some of the later gotchas.
Absolutely.
The other point I want to make is when you're looking at devices and device makers, just bear in mind that a lot of these device makers grew up in a different universe, being healthcare. And to some extent, they're not aware of the regulations that we all have to abide by. So experience is very important, and there is no substitute for your due diligence to make sure. So there is a device vendor that we were working with for a client of ours, and as we were doing the due diligence for our own piece of food, we found out that their device was not 510K certified yet. So we alerted our client, and then they decided to go with another one. So something as fundamental as that. The other thing is, and Rich, I'm sure will be talking about this, make sure that the tools that you choose are in fact capable of sharing data. It's sometimes a pretty trivial thing, but you'd be surprised how difficult it could be in certain things. And finally, it is your data that are in these tools, so you want to make sure that you have the right to extract your data and to be able to use it for whatever needs you have. And the final thing is, one of the biggest things we see is folks having overlapping data capture. So they have the same data element appear in a CTMS, for example, and then in an EDC. And then when they generate a report on, let's say, something as simple as the status of CRF completes, they find that the CTMS is showing something different. It's actually easy to deal with. You choose a single source of truth and you synchronize it with the other tool. So you're not taking away from the visibility of the data, but what you are doing is, by convention, you're making sure, again, remember that frictionless data design I talked about? Bear that sort of stuff in mind. And finally, pick the best in breed tools. Don't compromise. There are a lot of very good tools out there, and with proper integration, you can have the data flow back and forth smoothly, so you really don't have to settle for second best for anything like that. And a reference here I'd like to share with you is Jeff Smith is the life sciences Gartner analyst, and he wrote a very interesting article titled Market Guide for Life Science eClinical Platforms. If you have a Gartner subscription, I urge you to go and read it. He does a very good dissertation about who are the good vendors, who are the strong vendors, what is the best approach to, in terms of choosing your eSources. Did you want to add anything, Richard, to that?
No, right on. Sonia, poll question number 3.
All right, thank you very much, Richard and Sina. And it is poll question number 3. I'm going to launch it right now, just like before. I'll give you about 45 seconds to complete this poll question, then I will close the polls and share the results. So the question is, if we fast forward to 2023, what percentage of your organization's clinical trials will have fully interoperable eSource? So please pick from the below. We have the first one, some 1 to 25%. Sorry, excuse me. We are well on our way, 25 to 75%, or we are still considering strategies. Perfect. That looks like we have the majority. I'll give a few more seconds for those who have not done so. If you could do so now, it would be greatly appreciated. Okay, that looks like it's everyone. Thank you, everyone. I'm now going to close the polls and share the results. Okay, so the question was, if we fast forward to 2023, what percentage of your organization's clinical trials will have fully interoperable eSource? And the results are here. We have 15% at some, 1 to 25%. 55% at we are all well on our way at 25 to 75%, and then 30% at we are still considering strategies. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for participating in that last poll. Now back to Richard and Sina.
Perfect. Wow.
Yeah, that was very, very encouraging. However, those 30%, I think this demonstration might be able to pull some of that 30% into that 55. So, Sina, take it away.
Sure. Thank you very much. So what we did here was we took a very simple workflow. Just know that obviously this would be a piece of what you would have to do. And the use case here is the patients are coming in at a site, and the site is using the monitoring tools that they already have, which in this case is by a company called Masimo, Masimo is a global med tech company. They are manufacturers of non-invasive patient monitoring technologies and med devices. They're well established in just about every hospital and bedside care unit that you might run into. You may already know of them. Their strength is having constant monitoring, continuous and non-invasive, which is really, really useful. But there are a couple of challenges there. These tools are very, very effective for their purpose, and this is their mobile patient wearable thing, which is something that's of interest. But these were designed for ultimately delivering the data to the nurse's station and for the doctors to look at, to be able to look at the biosensors and be able to respond. They were not really designed to extract subsets of the data for use by our EDC. So what we're going to show you for the balance of this demo is how that data is seamlessly captured through our system, filtered, some workflow is applied to it, and then loaded into Bioclinica EDC. So this is the tool platform. It's a software as a service. There is a library of what are known as connectors, and I just want to pause here for a minute. As you can see, there are connectors for all the major electronic medical record vendors such as Cerner and Epic, and our website has the whole litany of these sources. And so why are these componentized? Because one of the things that I want to emphasize here, in order for this integration to be scalable, you have to have reusable components, and you have to be able to do it very, very easily. So here we're going to pick that the source is from Masimo, and then we're going to do a data conversion here, because Masimo biosensor information is coming in a proprietary format, and now we want to translate it into a format that can be loaded into the EDC. And let's say during your due diligence, you realize that the format requires some massaging, so we just dropped in a rule, as we call it, or a module that is called the Masimo raw processor. So just to pause here, this is the connector to the Masimo devices. It manipulates the data in two different ways and then finally delivers it to Bioclinica. It's software as a service, so we basically create what we call a data stream. And once that data stream is in flight, the data is now being captured. Of course, there is a lot of work that we had to do configuring and so forth. So there's about, I'm going to pause here for a minute. So there's about like a week or two of work where we configure things like negotiating security and that sort of stuff. So this is a test study that's set up in Bioclinica's EDC. It's a fictitious pharma company, BioCure, and we have patients here. So these patients that you see on the far left have already been enrolled. And we're going to just show that here's a patient that was previously screened and well established, and the monitoring data for this patient came in. As you can see, the data that is being spewed out of Masimo is very proprietary and cryptic. So it doesn't conform to CDISC or anything like that. And as you can see in a snap, the data was transformed into a format that was compatible and loaded into the CRF. So we totally eliminated that source data verification step at that point because there was no intermediary. Now let's get this a little bit more exciting. So now we have a patient 19, and patient 19 hasn't been screened yet. We just enrolled them. So clearly by regs, you really are not allowed to even capture any data from them until the screening has been done, or perhaps consent forms have been signed. So here we've got 18 that was screened, and therefore they have a baseline CRF created, but 19, as you can see, has not been screened yet, so they don't have a baseline CRF even available. So we're going to go ahead and And all along, what our adaptive eClinical bus is doing in the background is spooling all of the data that's coming, but it knows not to promote the data to Bioclinica until after that patient has changed status to the patient has been screened. So as you can see, the need for an intelligent middleware is really paramount here, because God forbid you start loading data before you have consent, you will have issues there, or before training has been done and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a very simple workflow here, and what we wanted to show you was that it is something that can be made easy. However, there are a lot of factors that you have to take into account.
And that was simply for the Massimo device, but bringing in health record information is just this easy, right? I know that there's a lot of interest out there of how can we get the information in. You saw it, right? Adaptive has already tied in to the various health records, and they've already tied into us, and so that information, right? It just fills out those forms. Source paper is eliminated.
Yep. Thank you for pointing that out, Richard. There is currently the library, we estimate, covers about 90% of the tools that are out there, meaning reusable components are available for those. And if there is something that's very exotic or perhaps proprietary, a lot of folks have systems that they like. Well, you don't have to get rid of those systems. They can actually be made to become feeders into the Bioclinica EDC.
Right on. Okay, Sonia, poll question number 4.
Poll question number 4 it is. Here it is. There you go. And the question is, are you considering any of these new digital tools? You can pick as many as you like from below. We have a couple of them, a couple of options for you. The first one is eSource, ePro or eCOA, EMR, EHR, mHealth and wearables, for example, sensors, imaging, real-time lab feeds, or none. So please go ahead and cast your votes, and then I will close the polls and go right back to the presentation. Okay, perfect. That looks like we have everyone in on that, so thank you very much for that. I'm now going to close the polls and share the results. Okay, so the question was, are you considering any of these new digital tools? And you can pick as many as you like from below, and the results are here. We have 82% at eSource, ePro, eCOA, 35% at EMR, EHR, 59% at mHealth and wearables, and 35% at imaging real-time lab feeds, and 18% at none or other. Thank you everyone for participating in that last poll. Now back to Richard and Sina.
Well, I felt that was very encouraging. So, for my sponsors and CRO partners that are on the call, please reach out. Let's discuss these. I mean, normally we're given a protocol and we do what we do, and we'd love to come in further, deeper in the process and start talking about how we're going to bring these things to fruition. Very exciting.
Yeah, that was. I like the fact that the none is only at 18%. So even though some were modest and only 30% said that they were doing eSource, at least they are looking for these other vehicles, which is really important. Okay.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Bioclinica software. This is an opportunity for us to reach out to this audience and tell exactly what we do and how we can help in making your process more efficient. Next slide. So Bioclinica is a pretty large company. We have significant wherewithal. We have over 400 clients and over 2,500 employees worldwide, and we've supported more than 4,000 clinical trials. And these numbers, of course, will double with the ERT merger here next month. Next slide. So This is a list of all the things that Bioclinica does. And when we're talking about eSource, you really are talking about getting information into the EDC system because it really serves as the data hub for your clinical trial. But just know that at Bioclinica, all of these systems are unified on the back end, which means information is entered once and it carries through wherever it needs to go in order to create data sets for final submission and help your operation, whether it be managing the trial or whether it be making payments. Next slide. Bioclinica EDC. It's a single platform, any device, best-in-class enterprise electronic data capture, and it makes eSource simple. It's used by sponsors and CROs to build studies and capture data for thousands of clinical studies worldwide. It's ideal for any clinical trial regardless of size, phase, or complexity. Bioclinica provides the foundation of many leading research programs and is used on thousands of studies worldwide. The EDC system that you saw, briefly, you saw a couple of eCRS. It's been in use for more than 20 years, and we are now on version 5.9. And it's important to have a seasoned EDC system because clinical trials are hard, right? And they're getting more complex. We have seen more than 2,400 trials and all of the variations and all of the, the system has been hit and it's been stretched. And when you partner with Bioclinica, you're partnering with a company that has been there, done that, and can bring these best practices and success to you. So we've worked with more than 165 unique sponsors and have supported over 12,000 sites in 64 countries. And this is a little infographic, basically that shows the EDC system, right? And on the left side, we have data input. And down on the bottom, you see adaptive clinical. So, we have our own BYOD eCOA product. And then, of course, we'll be tapping in to all of ERT's eCOA products here very shortly. But adaptive really allows us to go outside of our product set, right, and bring in any data. And so we saw the device. We've talked about the health record, but it not only helps on that side, but then it can also take this data and put it wherever it needs to be, on the consumption side on the right. So adaptive is just a very, very powerful player, but you need to bring them in early so that you understand how to construct your trial and manage it. If you've created the protocol and you're getting vendors, at that point it might be too late to take advantage of everything that they can do to help you and your trial. And over on the right side, we talked about analytics. And so take a look at how powerful this is, though, right? Is that we have all these sources feeding in real time and into the EDC system. And next month, we're rolling out our analytics powered by Tableau. So we've got pretty advanced dashboards that will be fed real time. And so, for the data managers out there, I love you. Right? Folks take the data, you export it into Excel, and you do whatever you do, and you manage your trial that way. God bless you, and we'll continue to support you. For the folks that want to manage the trial at a little higher level, though, is that you'll see real-time information in Tableau, drillable down to that eCRF, right? And that's just a very, very powerful way of managing your trial and your data. Next slide. Sonia, poll question number 5.
All right, I'm jumping in right now. Here's our final poll question. And there it is in front of everyone. What is the biggest obstacle that your organization has with the adoption of eSource? So please select one. Waiting for standards or best practices to emerge. The benefits of eSource do not outweigh the cost. The ROI is not clear, or too difficult to coordinate resources. I'll give a few more seconds. Okay, that looks like we have the majority of our audience members have cast their votes. I'm going to leave a few more seconds for those of you who have not. If you can go ahead and do so now, it will be greatly appreciated. Okay,
This is
perfect.
this is a
Thank you,
tough one.
everyone.
Yep.
Yes, that's a tough one. Yeah, I feel we should have music in the background. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone. Okay, here are the results of that last poll question. What is the biggest obstacle that your organization has with the adoption of eSource? And we have 41% saying waiting for standards of or best practices to emerge. We have 12% at the benefit of eSource do not outweigh the cost. ROI is, there's no ROI. And then we have, is not clear, I should say. And then we have 47% at too difficult to coordinate resources. 47%. Okay.
Okay,
Let me share. Oh, there's the results there. It didn't click through. Everyone see it now? There we go. Sorry, everyone. So you can see there 41% waiting for standards. We got 12% at the benefits of eSource, and then 47% at too difficult to coordinate resources.
can you keep this here, Sonia, before you turn
Sure.
that over? Let's
Yeah.
discuss this a little bit. So
Yeah.
this is really surprising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for the past 5 years, we've really been stuck at the benefits do not outweigh the cost. And now, now folks are saying, no, we're waiting for standards to emerge, and it's too difficult to coordinate the resources. Okay, so what I would say is that for the first one, standards. Absolutely, there are some standards that we need to emerge, right? If you're going to be taking wearables, and wearables, I haven't seen a protocol, and I could just be missing it, okay? But wearables are not being used as for um, uh, for efficacy, right? These are more secondary measurements, and I think that once we can get to the point where we can make that data reliable, right? That those standards are going to become much more prevalent. And then as far as difficult to coordinate the resources, well, of course they're going to be difficult if you've created your protocol and you're going out to vendors, and then you're going, okay, how am I going to put all this together, right? I think you gotta get your partners together, and you got to come up with an approach, and then you've got to write the protocol with that in mind, or at least finish the protocol with that in mind. And that is that's what a good vendor will do with you. I would consider Bioclinica a good vendor. So, if for all those willing to have those conversations, would love to do that. Sina, what's your take on this?
Well, first, let me do the easy one. We actually we have a white paper off our website. We'll send you the reference for that. On the ROI is not clear. I mean, clearly we understand that it's a new concept, and it's not something that, as you're making your decisions on budget allowances and so forth, how do you quantify that? How much? And we've got some case studies in terms of labor savings, so that your data managers, CRAs, and so on are freed up to do other things. Intuitively, Rich mentioned eliminating source data verification. I mean, just look at how many cycles that takes, and you can eliminate that. The comment on standards is that we have a good standards body in our industry, and healthcare has a really strong standards body on their side as well. The thing to recognize, though, is that for the lack of a better word, there are two different universes with different drivers. And only last year at HIMSS, if you attended HIMSS, there was the first convergence where I actually saw HHS folks and CDISC folks on the podium at the same time. That's to say, the need is now. We really don't have the time. The standards will come, but choose a strategy that allows you to have all the benefits now, and then as the standards get ratified and get rolled out, then you can start adopting them. You know, this is, C- was nowhere to be found when we started working with EDC, and then gradually over time we all adopted C-. So it's no different than that. And I definitely want to echo Rich in that we have seen people get tangled if they don't do the planning. So if you do the planning up front, just like anything else, you can overcome the challenges there. But you're absolutely right. Without planning, you can very easily run afoul of some simple stuff.
Right on.
Okay. Rich, you want to take this?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go out and solicit questions. And by the way, we're on time. Amazing.
There's anything else you wanted to add? Or are we starting the Q&A now?
Let's go on to Q&A.
All right, then. We will begin. I'm going to take back the controls, and we'll begin the Q&A portion of the webinar right now. We're going to put on our webcams. Greet the audience. Hello, audience. Okay, and I just wanted to let the audience know that we received some questions already from our audience members. We have received some questions, and I would like to encourage our audience members to continue sending in your questions using that questions window, and we'll try to attend to your questions during this time we have together. So here is the first question. Are you ready? Okay,
Ready.
here it is. How do you see it changing going forward?
How do we see eSource?
Yeah, I think that's what you're referring to.
Changing going forward. Well, I think that big word, interoperability, I think that's going to be significant here. I think that that standards are going to emerge, and technology like adaptive's the first, I think, but they're going to evolve, making this easy. And this is going to become just a part of clinical research. I remember 15 years ago, cost justifying EDC over paper, right? And now everyone just kind of laughs at that, right, Sina? And,
Right.
And so, we'll be laughing at getting this data in automatically in another 5 years. Once again, COVID kind of pushed us, and now we're running.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to be able to have a conference though in person to talk about this a little, in detail.
If I could just add to that, I think another good trend that's going to help with this is the demographic shift. As more and more millennials, or as we call them, technology natives, enter the workforce and become our CRAs and data managers, they don't know anything but, like, to them, the whole concept of let me write this down on a piece of paper and then type it in is comical. So I think this is something that is definitely going to happen. The other dimension of it is, I think the number of the fragmentation of data is going to get worse over time. Not in a bad way, but the fact that we're going to end up with many, many, many more sensors, many, many more sources of data, and they are all going to contain very valuable information that's going to be needed for our insights. As Rich said, once you pour it into Tableau to see the analytics, you want to have access to all the data.
Okay, thank you very much, Sina, for that. Here's our next question. How will eSource evolve?
That was kind of related to the previous question, and so what I do is I see it just becoming more ubiquitous, right? That we're going to be capturing data we're going to make reliable data, endpoint data available at the individual and device level. That's where I see this going in the next 5 years. So basically making data more reliable and less expensive.
Yeah, I like your cost observation, Rich. You're absolutely right. It has been very expensive if you take into account, and this goes back to the ROI is not clear. You know, just look at how much work you put in to enter information. You had the PI involved, you had the CRA involved, you potentially had data management involved, and now all of those steps go away, and of course the data quality increases. I think what we can expect is that the data quality is going to be significantly better going forward, and as an industry, we're going to hopefully spend less time chasing anomalies, or if we see an anomaly, it's really an outlier that warrants attention. It's not just glitching the data.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go to the next question. When we refer to frictionless data transfer, how would existing e-sources, especially devices, be optimized for FHIR?
Do you want me to take that, Rich?
Yeah.
Okay, so industry jargon there, Sonia. I'll pronounce it FHIR. Those who live it, that's how they pronounce it. But yeah, FHIR is a standard in the healthcare. A lot of the electronic medical records. When healthcare was trying to figure out how do we exchange data, they came up with a couple of different standards, and FHIR is the one that emerged. The challenge there is with frictionless data is that, you know, gosh, I wish if every device that we've worked with could generate the same version of FHIR consistently. You know, the frequency at which they generate the data is different. The versions of FHIR that they generate is different. And if you remember in the demo, you remember there was a connector that was taking the data from the med device, and then there was a processor that was kind of normalizing and harmonizing it. Well, the reason we came up with that approach was because we very quickly noticed that sometimes even the same device from the same vendor is generating different kinds of data. So I would say if in their specs, they tell you that they're FHIR compliant, don't be complacent and expect that you need to do some work to do that. And that's going to be the frictionless, because if you don't, then you're going to end up noticing divergence in your data flow. And that's not a good thing.
Richard?
I think Sina nailed it there.
Okay, all right.
Right on.
We have a couple more questions. I'll try to see if you can squeeze them in. Here's the next one. If source is added or corrected, will the e-source show any audit trail?
Okay, so that has everything to do with your EDC system, right? And so certainly the Bioclinic EDC system will show source, and then even on the eCRF it'll indicate, you know, if that was eSource. So yes, the more advanced systems will do that.
Yeah, I would say that from our side as well, that's paramount. You know, you need to make sure that the tool that you use, and ours has meticulous logs with chain of custody of where the data came from, at what point in time, and then when we hand it off to the EDC, as Rich mentioned, Bioclinica's log will take over. And in fact, thank you for asking that question. That's one of the major pitfalls. Sometimes people think, oh, you know, I'll go hire an intern who's a programmer and write a code that converts the data from here to there. Well, no. If you want to be CFR 21 Part 11, if you want to be compliant and not find out when end of study audit takes place that you were capturing the data incorrectly, you really want to make sure that you use a system. And that's a big part of what we do, is validation of the data flow. And that's huge. That's huge. That's a lot of effort goes into that.
Mm-hmm.
Richard?
Yeah, I think we exhausted this. So the answer is yes, but you need to bring professionals in and you need to plan,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Here's the next question. What does an organization need to do to get ahead of the curve?
Okay, that is such a great way to wrap it up with 3 minutes left, right? Yeah, so getting ahead of the curve. I would bring an initiative to your vendors and say, this is what we want to accomplish. How do we do this? And let your vendors bring to you an answer, and then finish your study design with that in mind. And I think that that will get you well ahead of the curve, and they may bring solutions to you of which you are not even aware. Right. So often the process is here's my requirement, please bid, and you end up bidding on these on these deliverables, and then coming from sales guy, right, is that you don't want to bring in these other things because it complicates your proposal, and in some cases it inflates the cost, and I should talk about cost. So there is a cost to bringing adaptive in, right? And so just like any software investment, there's an initial investment that you need to make, and then the more you use it, it gets it gets leveraged more and more and more and more, to the point where it's almost negligible after 10 trials, right? And then when compared to the savings, you go, my God, why didn't I do this earlier? So you need to consider that up front. That's how you get in front of the curve, and you need to consider this as an investment that's going to spurn savings and better data.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Well said.
Anything you'd like to add, Sina? Well said. But anything
No,
else you'd like to add to that?
I'm just naturally impressed by Rich anyway. But no, I mean, the only thing I can add is if you think about it, folks, unless you are one of the top 10 pharma and you have done thousands of studies, well, you saw some of the impressive stats that Rich put up, 4,000 studies. I mean, clearly that organization has seen just about every nuance of everything. So, we're nowhere near that, but we do see hundreds of study on a daily basis. Please use us as a resource. We would love to help shape your thinking, share our experiences with you. So, as Rich said, I think the benefit to you by bringing us in early is that we'll be able to at least tell you, hey, look, we've seen this done incorrectly. Perhaps you should avoid doing it this way. And that should help you.
Okay, perfectly said.
Right on.
Richard, sounds like you wanted to say something else.
No, I just, what a great way to wrap up this webinar. That was a lot of fun. Thank you, Sonia and Sina.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for those questions. We have reached the end of the question and answer portion of the webinar. If we couldn't attend to your questions, the team at Bioclinica may follow up with you after this presentation. And just to let you know, Bioclinica will be publishing a Q&A follow-up blog post and will address all outstanding audience questions there. So keep an eye out for that. And if you have any further questions, direct them to the email addresses that are on your screen. And then you see there's one there for Richard and one for Sina. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for participating in today's webinar. You will be receiving a follow-up email from XTalks with access to the recorded archive for this event. A survey window will be popping up on your screen. Your participation is appreciated as it will help us to improve on our further webinars. Now, I'm about to send you a link in your chat box. You'll be able to view the recording of this event at that link and also share this link with your colleagues when they register for the recording as well. So I encourage you to do that. And there's more. Get even more out of today's presentation by downloading the supporting materials that are available under the Handouts tab. And we have 3 there for you. One is Bioclinica EDC brochure. The other one is Bioclinica EDC white paper, do-it-yourself study bills. And the last one is Bioclinica eSource with ACS adapted clinical systems. Okay, now we say thank you to Richard, Global Vice President of Business Development with Bioclinica Software Solutions, and Sina, CEO and President of Adaptive Clinical Systems, for that very insightful presentation and discussion. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending, everybody.
Okay, we
Welcome.
hope you found this webinar informative. It has been my pleasure to be your webinar moderator. On behalf of the team here at X Talks, we thank you for joining us. I'm Sonia Hunt. Until next time, please take care and bye for now. Bye, everyone. Bye.